This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, we are joined with Jon Henschen. Jon is the founder of Henschen Associates, a recruiting firm focused on recruiting advisors to independent broker-dealers and RIAs. Jon has been securities licensed since 1989, working at wirehouses, Prudential Securities, and Merrill Lynch, as well as working in the independent channel. In 1996, Jon changed career path to wholesaling mutual funds and variable annuities for Fortis, and in 1999, Jon switched his focus to recruiting financial advisors as the Midwest recruiter for National Planning Corp. And started his own recruiting firm in 2001. Jon, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Good to be here.
Yes, this is a time to be talking about recruiting. It seems like the industry is in another shuffle with kind of coming back to the workforce out of the shutdowns and the hiring issues that a lot of advisors are facing, along with just some, uncertain times. Tell us, before we get into a lot of what you're doing here, how did you get to this place? I know we started at wirehouses, you got into recruiting, but maybe give us the why background here. Why did you decide to get into the recruiting aspect?
When I was wholesaling for Fortis, I happened to come across a guy that was an advisor, but he was also a recruiter. And he was talking about recruiting and what he did. And he was doing independent recruiting and also had his license with the broker-dealer. And so we had a relationship of back and forth conversations for probably 2 months or so. And that's what spurred my interest, because I thought it was a natural progression from what I was doing with Fortis, where I was wholesaling products, and I was really getting to know all the independent broker dealers from working at Fortis, and I thought I'd try my hand at recruiting. Now, my prior history before I got into financial services is I did laser optics engineering. And in 1985, I spent a year recruiting electrical engineers with a specific focus on microwave engineers and the microwave antenna engineers. So it was a specific niche. So I did that for a year. So I did have prior recruiting experience. So I had an interest in it going back to 1985, but I went back into the laser optics, and then from there got into the financial services. But I did, so having prior experience in it, the thought of getting into recruiting again was appealing, but more financial service related. So I thought I'd get into the doing the independent channel, but I was also doing regional firms and wirehouses. And then over the first 6 months of my firm starting, I decided to phase out the regional firms and the wirehouses and just focus on the independent broker-dealer channel, because really it was also an area where there were very few recruiters. There was a handful. Like I knew of 2 others at the time. It was the Papikes and Turning Point and myself doing recruiting, and so there was no competition. So it was a niche, and I thought, hey, good to have a niche. But now we're expanding our niche to include RIAs over the last 2 years.
Yeah, smart. So you took an interest where you were at in an industry, a skill that you had before, and you really have put those together because you've seen this need.
Yeah.
And you know that it's going to be something that's important. Needed right now, absolutely, as there's a lot of changes in the industry. So you've been in the industry for a couple decades now, right? More than that.
Yeah, 89 I got licensed, and so I still keep my license active, even though I don't broker anymore.
So you've got a great depth of experience, which I'm sure will help and serve your clients well in their recruiting endeavors. So you've got that going. You've got a business, family life. You've got your own personal interests and hobbies and needs. And Tell us a little bit about what you define as balance. How do you define balance in your life?
Well, God, family, work is the priority, my priority list. And so we try to keep it in that order. A lot of times, people we observe around us, it's easy to see the priority list being work, family, God, and other things, or if God's even in the picture. But I have an evangelical Christian background, so that is pretty much imprinted that into my priority list. But yeah, I try to, this balance thing, it's always kind of in flux. I'll share my wife about a year ago is diagnosed with Parkinson's, and she's had, we knew something was up medically for probably 3 years now, and so was finally diagnosed here about a year ago, and then from the Parkinson's diagnosis, they fine-tuned that to discover she has MSA. And so, we're trying to, realize, hey, she probably has 10, 12 years, unless something comes out of the ordinary as far as a cure or some sort of treatment that can defer that. But yeah, we have 10, 12 years. So now we got to think balance wise, we got to cram a lot into our life, with, seeing, that things are becoming finite for her. So this is a new challenge for trying to figure out what will balance be now. And, I'm 63 now. And so I'm wondering, well, I never really wanted to retire. I enjoy what I do. And, just maybe cut hours back some. But, I work 8:30 to 4:30 and take about an hour and a half off midday. And that's been my routine for many years now. And then we try to take a 1 to 2 week vacation over the summer. And we like to take a foodie trip once a year, where we have destinations around the country that we want to go to certain restaurants. And then we have a cabin an hour north of here. So we go up there on weekends when we can. And so, yeah, and then we have a lot of activities. I like snowmobiling, I snow ski, and, we do fishing and hiking, and I hunt. And so I do, I'm in Minnesota, and these are cliche Minnesota things to do in the state. That's partially why we moved here, because those are my interests. It was harder to do a lot of those things living in LA. But out here, we go up to our cabin, and we have a snowmobile trail right near our cabin that goes on for miles and miles. And we're right by a river where I could fish for muskie and walleye and smallmouth. And I can go a couple miles another direction from our cabin, and I could do pheasant hunting. So, everything is nearby that caters to what I like to do. And then my wife and I, we do a lot of, we hunt for agates and jasper rocks. We go up to the North Shore of Lake Superior and do that when we can. So, yeah, just have different interests and hobbies, and try to make time for them.
Yeah, I love that. The make time aspect is huge, right? We're the Make Time Institute. That's our method, our model, our madness here. That you got to make time for those things that are really important to you, your priorities. When you talk about your wife's diagnosis and prognosis, it puts things into priority, doesn't it? It kind of gives us a reason to use our time wisely. And this happened to me when my father passed away. And we were talking about this pre-show. As soon as my dad passed away, like all of a sudden, everything in life just kind of got super narrow. And it got to this point where I was like, wow, like there are a few things that are super important in life, and all these other things that you're doing or that you want to be doing, like they just don't matter. Super focus in, and it's time. That's really where, when I started working on this book, Achieving Balance, and this whole podcast idea and helping advisors, is really from that experience. So I can imagine with your wife and her condition, that's probably changed a lot of things, right? Or at least maybe brought them into focus. I'm putting words in your mouth, Jon, but that's what I'm hearing from you is, hey, it's time to really have a plan, right?
Yeah, definitely. You start realizing time's finite. There's things you dream of doing in your retirement, for instance. And it's like, well, maybe we need to speed up these timetables while you still have mobility and are able to do these things. And so one thing she's wanted to do is to do a trip to Hawaii. And she goes, I'd really like to do that soon because I don't know how long I'm going to have the mobility to do those things. So yeah, it's a slap in the face, so to speak.
And that I can understand that as someone who, has seen this happen to his own family, what's going on, the transition, that, you have this opportunity, you have this time. In fact, in the beginning of the book, we talk probably so much more about time management on this show and delegation and other things, but really the book is all about understanding what your values and true life mission is. Like what is it in each of these areas? And until you have your own experience where you can look at the end of your own life and say, this is who I want to become or who God wants me to become, it's a very difficult experience setting goals. Most people don't like setting goals. It feels very foreign to them. It's easy to set, hey, I want to make this much money or do this because it's very focused right in this industry to be focused on that. But the good balanced advisors I've found, ones that have goals in every area and treat it, their work as part of it. It's part of the whole, sphere. As you mentioned, God, family, work, then we put them into priority order and get to work on them. So I love that you're taking this time and making this time to make it a special period. As an advisor to other advisors, what do you feel are some of the biggest issues that keep you from being in balance? Even though you have this desire, time is precious. We understand that. But what are some of the things that maybe pull you away from that mental mindset?
Well, just the drive to, I need to be marketing more, I got to do more articles. So, I push myself and, probably being in the moment versus my mind wandering in areas where I should be working on articles and doing research for articles. You can get lost in that mentally, where, your wife's in the background, your kids are in the background, and, you're in your thought world, but you're not in their world. So, there's probably an area where, I'm fine with my work schedule, but my thought schedule could be another matter where, I just get lost in my thoughts with planning for work and for articles and things related to work. So that's probably one area I probably need work on being balanced, is my what I delegate to my thought life.
Yes. Yeah, you're a thought leader. You write. There's a lot of articles you continually are putting out to, help the industry. So, one of those things I teach my clients is your brain is not an approved collection point. A collection point is any place physically, virtually, software, it could be text message, emails, social media, any place where messages collect ideas, items. It'd be even physical inbox where you have to clear out and get rid of or delegate, right? Or put on the calendar to be done at a later time. But the brain is not an approved one because it just sits there and it'll come back to you. And we know how the long-term memory does and does not work for very specific things. We have a great short-term memory for 2 or 3, maximum 5 items at a time. And that's a very difficult thing for people to hold on to. So do you have a notebook? Do you have like a OneNote or a place where you write down ideas? Or do you feel like you're always drawn to it, so you're always writing?
Oh yeah, I have flip notebooks like this, where like if I'm watching, I do YouTube shows and different speakers. One thing I used to love about like broker dealer conferences is you'd hear keynote speakers of people that you like to hear, economists and such. But with the advent of YouTube, they're right there, and you can access anybody at any time. So I do a lot of research through YouTube as well as reading books. And yeah, I have my little book thing where I take notes and keep track of things. And sometimes they're also inspirational as far as articles to do.
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. You have a place where you can write those thoughts down, keep it.
Yeah.
For later.
Like my version of a mole book, which writers do. Yeah. And I also have my Franklin planner, which I have here by my desk all the time that I keep notes in.
Yeah, wonderful. What do you think are some of the biggest issues for advisors to try to keep their balance?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I've had two cases here over the last 6 months that I thought were on polar opposites, but yet they were both quite content with their position. And one was an advisor in North Carolina, and when we were talking, he said, "Yeah, Jon, I want a broker dealer that's fine with the fact that I don't work 5 days a week. I take Fridays off oftentimes. I vacation a couple months a year. So they got to be okay with that, because my family comes first, and I spend a lot of time with my family, and I don't work a ton." And he's in North Carolina, and he had a good quality of life, with what he made, because it's not a high cost of living area. So he wasn't driven to burn the midnight oil by any means. So that was one on one side of things. On the other side, I had an advisor recently who he works 7 days a week. He's in California. He gets in the office at 5:30. We had a call on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. his time, 8 o'clock my time. And but he's also he's treasurer of 3 charities like Kiwanis and a couple others. And he's a part-time actor, and he's in movies. So he's got a full schedule, and he seems to be very content. And so I can't fault him. He doesn't. He's not complaining about the hours he works. He likes what he does. So and then the other guy, in my eye, I relate to the North Carolina advisor. It's like I don't work power hours. I did that when I worked at the wirehouses, and it really burns you out over time. So I tend to relate with that guy. But the other guy, he, as I said, he was content. It really didn't see any. I looked at his business. I thought he could implement technology more into saving time and more practice management type of things. But you get some of these advisors, and I'm not saying he was this, but I know there's some advisors out there where they don't have a CRM. They have a Rolodex, and they don't use their cell phone, and they're not connected in with social media. So there's definitely advisors out there that are still old school, and could be much more efficient and save themselves a lot of time if they were to update a bit. But yeah, that when I'm talking with advisors who want to get to the next level in production and grow their book, those are the topics that come up. Is, hey, if you tried practice management, and they're like, well, what's that? And it's a term that's different things to different people, but it's basically I guess Commonwealth is a good example where they kind of invented the whole term practice management, and it's implementation of technology to save time. They do help with marketing to save time, where you can unload tasks on the broker dealer so you don't have to do it. Having a virtual assistant can be very time savings, as well as having your own assistant. Some standalone advisors can't afford their own assistant, so a virtual assistant's a great alternative for them. But I think the the gist of practice management is, being able to offload things to your broker dealer to free up as much as 30% of your time. So then you could spend all that extra time you now have with either growing your book or golfing or fishing or reading or, whatever it is you want to do with that extra time. And so.
I mean, you nailed it. Practice management, balance, your Carolina example about, not wanting to burn the midnight oil is an incredibly powerful one, because I think right now where advisors are really waking up to this idea of like, we don't have to put in all these hours. You don't have to even go to an office. We can have virtual setup. We can do all these things that the broker dealer told us we couldn't, or we're starting our own RIA during this time. I know a lot of advisors who have done that. They've made this transition. They realize they have a much better balance when they're able to be flexible, or at least have the option. Working from home, working from the office, working virtually is a great one. So that really, I was going to ask a follow-up question of, do you see a lot of advisors who are wanting a greater sense of balance as well as growth? And I think you pretty much answered that you're finding this. What are you seeing as some other struggles that advisors are facing when it comes to keeping that balance?
Oh, I think a lot of times advisors are insecure about their relationships with their clients. And that's a big factor with changing broker dealer is, will my clients come with me? Will I have good retention? And so changing broker dealer could be a good indicator of the relationship quality they have with their clients. And I've had advisors that, any clients they lost in a move was because they didn't want them to move with them. It was kind of time to clean house and get rid of some of your problematic clients that could end up being a customer complaint or the type of personalities that take up a lot of your time but don't result in much revenue. It's a period where a lot of insecurities come up, and and also it's like, what did they build their practice on? Was it, hey, you should be with me because I'm with Edward Jones and it's a great name, or you should be with me because I'm a financial planner. I'm very disciplined in how I invest my clients' money, and I want to get you away from emotion-based investing to a process and models and things that will ensure that you don't have a portfolio that gyrates wildly up and down, and keep you from your worst enemy oftentimes, which is yourself, which has a propensity for buying high and selling low. And that's true when you see all these self-help people that are with, Schwab and Robinhood and such. They're emotional investors. So I think the greatest value financial advisors bring is they get them away from their own emotions and get them into a discipline.
Absolutely. And because at that point, they really are their own worst enemy if they don't have the accountability built in. I see a lot of advisors who, again, don't have their own financial advisor, and they can have some blind spots in their plan. They can have blind spots in their life that would contribute to that. So really, really good point here. But I never thought, until I just asked you that question, I never thought about, changing broker dealers, which I did. I did as I was making my way to be an independent, and then eventually go into academia and come back out to help the industry. When I went independent, there were clients that I didn't take with me, right? And there's also some things as you're leaving a broker dealer that you've got to be careful with and manage those relationships. But yeah, absolutely. There is a sense of insecurity. The interesting thing is, we're talking about values and goals, how I knew I needed to leave. I knew that was my goal. I needed to get out of there. No one was really guiding me. I was following footsteps of some others who had left the big, Northwestern Mutual, and kind of seeing how they were doing it. And as I was leaving, I recognized that I may lose everyone. I have to start completely over. Like that was a fact. That was a fact that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And I also knew that as soon as I left, I'm leaving all of my renewals that I've spent all these years, building up. And that was the dream, right? Is to build a renewal business and yada, yada, the shtick. So there are a lot of insecurities here. But when your values tell you you need to do this so you can become a better planner or have a better opportunity, I believe you go for it. That's risk management, though, right? Isn't that? It's like you're looking at what the risk and reward is and what move you need to make. But for me, in my mind, even if I had lost everything, I was young enough to start over. But one thing you mentioned that I wanted to circle back to is that I never really saw that as a way to improve productivity. Get rid of those clients, those problem clients, clean house.
Yeah.
Those clients who really aren't taking a lot of revenue with you. Until I went to some other coaching with Bill Backrack, and he was talking about how they build books of business, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And obviously, you want to do what's best for the client, and if you're not serving them best, it probably is better to introduce them to someone else at that point. But great points, John. So if advisors, are thinking about, leaving their practice, becoming their own RIA, or they know someone, why do this? Obviously, there's the balance reason, maybe better balance for them. But why go independent? What are the reasons that most advisors are telling you? And does it circle back to balance?
Well, if you go independent, you really need to have an entrepreneurial spirit. Where this is my practice. It's not my practice with Merrill Lynch. This is my practice. It's built on me, and so that's a hurdle for a lot of wirehouse reps. And having they come in, the sales assistant does a lot of their work for them. They're just in there and they make calls, and that's it. And they just it simplifies life. But the thought of being an entrepreneur, running your own office, having to deal with the staff, and all those additional dynamics, for some people, they just don't want it. And of course, in the independent channel, they do have the option. They could join a group that has office space and assistants. So that is an option. But it is more entrepreneurial to go the independent route. And also they have ownership, they have more control. And of course, they have a higher payout. Your payout in the wirehouse and regionals is 30 to 50%. You go independent and your payouts in the 85, 90% range. So and then of course you go RIA and you net even more. So it's also, when you were at the wirehouse, you had management breathing down your back to work more hours and to always grow your book. Well, you're only at 500,000 production. That's nothing. You got to get up to 1 million. Okay, well, I'm at 1 million. What? So what? You got to get up to 2 million. I mean, it's always a push. Work more hours and get bigger and bigger. And the quality of life aspect is secondary. It's what's good for them is that you become a higher and higher gross. And of course, they too also get into working more efficiently. But the more efficiently motive isn't so you can spend more time with your family. The more efficiently motive is to get your book bigger so they make more money. So they tend to be more out of balance. We're in the independent channel. It's more about quality of life and you calling the shots and being more self-motivated.
Yeah, 100%. I would say that was my biggest reason for going independent, was the constant breathing down the neck of the management, which I enjoyed working with them. It was that piece of never feeling like I really owned my schedule, even though that's how they sold it. It became this isn't really what's going on here. It's really all about the firm and the business at large. And if I'm carrying enough of the weight, yada yada yada, the story goes on. So 100%, I totally get that. Obviously, there's entrepreneurial spirit. You may just not be the right fit. You've got to market this. You've got to grow it. But if you already have those skills, to me, this makes a perfect sense to build better work-life balance. Now, if you work at a firm, if you're lucky enough to work at a firm where that's emphasized, you're the minority, and that's a great thing to be a part of. But a lot of broker dealers, that's not what they're known for, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about, like, this is not the culture of this industry, and I think that's unfortunate, because until these big broker dealers see enough numbers move and enough numbers that are leaving because of this reason of work-life balance, I don't think they're going to pay much attention to it. I really don't. So I applaud what you're doing, my friend Jon. I love that you're helping advisors find better balance by becoming more independent. If they want to reach you, and I know you've got numerous articles, white papers, I know they can go to findabrokerdealer.com, right, and check out the work you're doing there. Anywhere else where you'd say, hey, come check me out here?
Just my website. It has all my articles. It has, like, if they want to hear my interview I did with Michael Kitzes is on there. I also wrote an 8-page article for Michael Kitzes about forgivable notes and why they're not forgiven. And so I said, it's that I keep all my resources on there, and I added a section in there of on the website of my favorite articles that I've done over the years that I thought were more of the standout articles that there were quite a few of those that were on my article bucket list to do. And so, I still have a lot to write about on my bucket list, including my book that I want to do. And hopefully, like you, once I do my first book, I'll have other ideas of other books to do. But I've got to stop procrastinating on this book project and get to it.
Well, once you decide to do that, we'll have you on the show, and you can talk to us about your book and what you're up to there. Thank you for being on the show. Thanks for making time for this project of mine to help advisors have better balance. In this episode, doing it through becoming an independent, RIA. And, if you have needs, if you're curious, reach out to Jon, findabrokerdealer.com. Thanks again, Jon, for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.